Welcome, everyone. This from sunny Brisbane, Treetop Studio Interactive Publications. I'm David Reiter, the CEO and publisher of IP. We're going to be launching two new books today. First of all, we have James Gering, Staying Whole While Falling Apart, and The Fickle Pendulum by Paul Scully. So I will start out with brief bios of Paul and James, and then let them take it from there. And if we have any time at the end, we may have a few minutes for a Q&A. So here we go. So James Gering is a diarist, short story writer, and poet, born in Johannesburg, South Africa. He has lived in Australia for many decades. James was the Australian Society of Authors Emerging Poet of the Year, 2018, and his writing has been published in journals around the world. He teaches at the University of Sydney and lives in the pristine Blue Mountains. There he climbs the cliffs and explores the river canyons in search of Rilke's solitude, Chekhov's humility, and dreamscapes in general. James welcomes visitors at jamesgering.com. And Paul Scully is an actuary by training, works in finance, and has been writing poetry most of his life. He has a master's of creative writing from Sydney University, where he is currently pursuing a doctorate in creative arts. Much of the poetry in this volume comes from that endeavor. His first collection, An Existential Grammar, was published by Walia Press in 2014 and was shortlisted for the Anne Elder Award. His second collection, Suture Lines, was published by Guillotine Press in 2016. His work has been commended and shortlisted in major Australian poetry prizes and has been published in print and online journals in Australia, Ireland, the UK, and the USA. Okay, so we'll kick off with James's book. Staying Whole While Falling Apart celebrates troubled all-rounder Aaron Auslander as he strives to find meaning and shape his identity in the midst of too many influences. Love and parenthood complicate matters, and Aaron has to find creative ways to rally and stay whole. Okay, take it away, James.
Some poems now, from Staying Whole While Falling Apart. Cliff climbing, no rope. If Aaron falls from the crux, he breaks a leg. Any higher and the grim reapers will be busy. He manages the hard moves and commits to the erect. Josie on the ground tells her lover one last time to use a rope, like any sane man. But why? His mind is clear. The sandstone soothing. Nearing the summit, he stretches for a hold, misses by a sliver, backs off and rests by alternating his feet in a hole the size of a domino. A tremor starts in one leg, and the reapers get word. They arrive whooping, pile out of their hearse, and prepare the undertaking. Last time Aaron completed a solo climb, the black dog backed off. Relieved, he craved sky-drenched love with Josie. She recoiled and delivered her ultimatum. Sweat sheens his temples, death flirts with his fingertips and licks the soles of his sportivas. Trees below appear tiny, Josie too not looking. Must get the feet higher, Aaron whispers. The rock exudes a gunpowdery warmth. His tremor eases, the reapers curse. He executes the final moves and collapses onto the summit slab of rock, arms wide, imploring bliss. Nothing. He scans the void. No Josie. Then he spots her, soloing the pathway out. She slows near a rusty gate, kind of familiar, it's hers. The worn path meanders to her gaping front door. Shadows press close and chaperone her to the attic. Grand fingers relics, thumbs through albums, showing her unscathed, eye suggestive of someone home. She hurls a paperweight and topples a filing cabinet, drawers slamming open. The shadows swoop and excavate, cart away memories in dying light, leave dim tracks and a calling card, blank on both sides. Birthday treasure hunt. Aaron's sons hand him the first clue. He touches a finger to his temple and hums a little. Revelation strikes. He races to the terrace. Walt and Josh, hard on his heels. He finds treasure in the tire swing. 2 bottles of beer and a new clue. Fish not happy. The treasure hunting trio chuckles as lagers shimmer in the fish pond. Left the blondes perch on a branch and stout Bavarians lounge under a shrub. All up, 37 bottles grace the table. Happy birthday, Dad. Drink one now, Dad. Here, here, their mother says. She pulls Aaron close and whispers, just a few beers a night, yeah? Golden goose. Aaron swims yet yearns to stop. Gusts lose puff, leaves languish on the water. Backstroking, he scans the clouds for meaning. Behold a titanic arm. Maybe God sparking Adam. Maybe Moses parting seas. Or a swiveling building crane. A summons. An invitation. A hook attached to the crane cable skims the water. Aaron ascends into the domain of giants. He dizzily eyes a goose eyeing him. He seizes the warm pulsing bird and flees amid squawks and feathers. Above him, the descent cable trembles and jolts. The giant sings of blood. Aaron splashes down into the pool. Goose tucked under left arm, he slaps with the right, a titbit moving in laughable rings. Singles. Separated singles, divorced singles, guilty parent singles, riding silly cycles. 10-kilo lighter, crumpled, browbeating singles, modern, medicated, damp, cheap singles, cocktailing one-nighter, sullied singles, seeking solace on sofa from soft animal singles. Have coffin, need pallbearers. No birthday paraphernalia in the house, so Aaron snuffs out a mourner's candle jammed in a muffin. His sons usually phone, but last time he said no need. Those kids are too bloody literal. Should he email himself? Happy returns, you old sod. Maybe a selfie with muffin raised high. No. He'll send out notes in bottles. Hello, sons, remember me? A birthday tree has just fallen in my forest. Or a rogue note, have coffin, need pallbearers. How absurd. This train of thought gathering all the pace it needs. The window breeze calms him. A mother in the playground below is singing happy birthday to her daughter. He wants to pluck a wish out of the air, but the woman looks up. He realizes he's been singing along. Hey there, birthday girl, he calls. Would you and your mother like to come round with chocolate muffin? Aaron's nightmare after booking for Europe. Caress of steamy bath water, plump cherry in the mouth, newspaper cast wide. Oh, yawn, oh, monotony. The door splinters off its hinges, cracked and spit of air, boot stamp, gun clank, 5 men snarling in the shadows of helmets. A driving kick shatters the cherry bowl off the wall. A henchman slams his gun butt into Aaron's face. Crunch of bone, jolt of pain, black print running in the water. They wrench him up, sock and pink. He spews cherry remnants over a thug's boot. You pig, the man shouts, swinging a kick into Aaron's guts. They drag him bumping off walls, bouncing off steps, into a boxcar, crammed with the chosen, reeking of incredulity. And a freight train screams in the night. Aaron reflects on counter lives. Tribute to Philip Roth, devotee wordsmith of debauched brilliance and master of self-plundering. People sample their counter lives. A normal child one day, holed up and hunted the next. Anne Frank glides into immortality. But no, her counter life was a counter death unchosen, a byproduct of evil, yet a kick in its face. Enter Russian dolls, the outsider exposed, the middle ones secure or entrapped, depending on mindset. The insider empty. Jaded husbands wring their tickle sacks and go philandering. Plundered wives find the courage for makeovers. Terrorist mass murderers devoutly commandeer jetliners, crash into towers of humanity. Hapless victims assume their parting selves. Time to visit the hatters, feathery plumes for fun, Viking helmets for loggerheads, a Kubris for identity. Time to quit faffing, to lay our heads on the genetic edge, to let the surgeons shape our superlative selves. Return to Australia. Private pools dot the suburbs, unwanted goods line the sidewalks, spongy material cushions playgrounds, lest the children take a tumble. Police horses wear white and blue, and little dunny sacks too. The birthday of the British Queen prompts a national holiday. Prime ministers blow in and out like bloated flies. Planes plume the sky with adverts for Cocoa Pops and cruise liners. Topless women sunbathe at Bondi, unperturbed, undisturbed. As tides beach revile refugees and lonely citizens seek love online. Toddler invasion. Tribute to Alan Kurdi, a 3-year-old Syrian of Kurdish ethnicity who drowned in September 2015 in the Mediterranean Sea. His body lay on a Turkish beach. He loved to learn, but never went to school. He never had swim lessons, but went to sea. He didn't fail, but was profoundly failed. The media splashed the image of his corpse around globally, face down on beach in red shirt and navy pants. The photos riled readers of Bild magazine who feared an invasion of Kurds or similar, those fleeing war and atrocity. See his hands on the sand by his sides, fingers stiffly curled to the clouds, and water-lapping lips as if to nourish, and shoes still on toddler feet, as if ready to ferry him someplace better. Aaron flexes and turns a corner. He finds it at a street market, a studded leather cuff to click shut around his wrist, some much-needed oomph. Saturday evening, lounge room brimming with loneliness, he savors the smell of the hide and dives into the world of virtual dating. He sends out nudges. The cheery responses startle him. A few women materialize. Disconsolation follows. Then a nudge from Zoe. They message each other. I'll be the one at the table of one, he says, but also the table of plenty. Zoe tentatively enters the boutique bar, a leather choker of ring charms, caressing her neck. She laughs in communion over Aaron's leather cuff. He tries out some laughter of his own and likes the sound. Butter me up. I like butter, I want it, but the butter's too hard, too soft, too salted, too French. I like butter, I want it, but you've spread it too far, you've spread it too near. I like butter, I want it, but cultured, please, and saltier and more French. Whoa, that's way too much. I said that's, oh wow. No, definitely don't stop. Spread it near, spread it far. Butter me up, butter me down, salted or on this side or that, French or not. And my last poem now. Safety nets. Dear consumer choice editors, life has been appealing to me, so much so that I need your advice on safety nets, the best in the marketplace. Yours, Aaron Auslander. Dear Mr. Auslander, after testing of all nets, mannequin bodies dropped from great heights, the unique snowflake took the blue ribbon, only 2 dummies going unsaved. This net is also available in luminous hues for nightfalls. The pacifier fared well too, showcasing a music function triggered by the catch. Little net speakers play soothing melodies that grant you a head start on therapy. Upgrade to their croon cocoon, and a discreet cover whirs over for distress in privacy. Regarding the portability factor, the So Sleek is super light and streamlined for the confident. But be wary. One proud sleeker never needed to deploy his until he fell and missed by a hairline. Stay safe. Consumer Choice Magazine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, James. Without further ado, we'll go straight into Paul Scully's The Fickle Pendulum. Take it away, Paul.
Thanks, David. I'd like to join with David and James in thanking you all for being on the line today. It means so much to us. And also a great thanks to everyone who's been so supportive and influential in what has become more than a tangent for me. As you all have read, The Fickle Pendulum examines belief and doubt through the prism of three historical figures: St. Thomas the Apostle, the original doubting Thomas, as a representative of religion; Galileo Galilei as a representative of science; and Laura writing Jackson as a representative of poetry, and who gave up writing poetry in the period 1938 to 1940. I'll read 6 poems. In this first poem, Thomas is in his workshop. Jesus approaches the workshop to recruit Thomas as an apostle. The poem also mentions the stigmatics, supposed saints who allegedly experienced the wounds of Jesus in their own hands, feet, and sides. At first, I thought it was the grind of the auger as I was milling dowel beds in Bethlehem Oak, or that the summer lust of locusts had crept inside the workshop, perhaps the tinnitus of something I'd misplaced or forgotten. The next time I looked, there he stood, hand outstretched, a smile weightless as birdsong. For Luke, a similar tale, decocting herbs in his dispensary, and for Andrew and Peter, curing nets on Galilee's shore. He assembled us there as though we were sparrows a child had moulded in the clay at pond's edge, and brought us to the wing in the kiln of his breath. 3 years it led to, 3 years of ewers of water made wine, of lepers, harlots, and tax collectors who had traded Yahweh for Rome, of coaxing stones from judgment's hands and laying them in store for a mansion beyond even a comet's gaze, except in the blaze of his speech, rooms plentiful as threat, of dust for blankets and the night sky emptied of the old constellations. I offered to march into the jaws of Judea with him when Lazarus lay ill and the Pharisees' blood was up. I would have taken the nails for him, would it have helped, taunted Longinus to excavate deeper into my side. Instead, the simple, obvious questions of a man trained in the square, the saw blade, and all, as he was, in measurement and the materials of construction. Then his rebuke, my mind a monastery of regret, all conjured into an eternity of epithet, of example and lesson making. The stigmatics, Assisi, Siena, Pio, their sinewed certainty, a knowing from inside the wound. That should have been my dispensation. The next is a Galileo poem. There are references to the Feast of the Annunciation of Mary, which began the official year of the city of Pisa, where Galileo lived at the time, and after which its cathedral was named. There are also references to the Leaning Tower of Pisa as a bell tower or campanile, and to the pendulum clock, for which drawings were found in Galileo's paper. There is no record, though, that he ever built one. This virgin city begins its year remembering the prism of an angel's voice. She would carry salvation in her womb, her aging cousin baptism. Our cathedral's name, in the Piazza di Medicoli, a handsome but stolid groom to its tipsy campanile, witnesses the hover of her body into the sphere of saints, to the unsung virtuous. The blooms on the altars beneath her painted face mimic her intercessions. While I never tire of the pledge of mercy, our padre too swiftly shreds our foibles into hell's kindling, and my eyes wander into wicked ascent. A breeze bells the lamp in the nave ceiling. However widespread the arc, the timing of the east-west swing does not vary. I construct triangles from peaks and perpendiculars, fulcrum and lateral, to read the angles the arcs subtend. The laws of the lever and balance beam, Conrad's of old, join Euclid's colloquy. The sense's exhalations now fill the vault and obscure my view. The lamp continues to sway and carves runes and hieroglyphs in the smoke that describe how reason and faith contend. The one swells in the observed moment, the other lends an edge beyond time to man's allotted hour. Ah, the sermon ends. Perhaps a clock works somewhere in this machinery. This next poem is a sequence from Forever Riding, the sequence on Laura riding Jackson. In the mid to early 1930s, 2 portraits were painted of her, one by a friend, John Aldridge, and the other by an establishment painter, Arnold Mason. I've called the first section Friendly Fire. Face on to the painter, hawker-wear, stiletto-lipped, a foreign given to loftiness, umbral reserve, rectitude made visceral, affection subdued by awe. Her biographer mentions antique buttons on bodice and sleeves, a beaded necklace. Her words, something not quite right, a few suggestions for change, but only if they confirm to your art. The second I've called A Stranger's Eyes. Ah, romance, depth, semi-oblique to the painter, left skew, a spectral brow, shadowed distal face, forehead high and illumined, a cultured mien, perhaps an angel waiting to bloom, though melancholy and all species of hunger hover at the doorway. The next poem is an example of how I've tried to take the core poems on the various figures into other places. In her extended essay, Anarchism is Not Enough, Laura Riding Jackson compares art forms. The poet is called How a Poem Differs from a Painting. I start with a quote from Laura Riding Jackson. The poetic progress of painting influences the pictorial progress of poetry. There is a great response in modern poetry to the demand by painters that it should be more poetic. Brushstrokes are brow. They palpate a rain squall and mound into moss, while nearby, reality pours into molds of brazenly coloured domestic geometry. Crosshatching might be shadow, code, or signature, and a sitter somewhere intutes more than the artist. Closed eyes collapse all entities into the inward gaze, which is where strong poems also quarry. I recall an annex, a painting of fish mounted on an easel, snapper perhaps, hung like a Jesus on a meat hook, a short film recounting their journey to canvas. Inside the house proper, a brass plaque told of the painter's wife forsaking art for family, though her early work evinced a greater luster. A picture may have 1,000-fold capacity, but it is we who fail words, poetry our fragile and magnificent redress. The next poem was commended in the 2018 ACU Poetry Prize. I wrote it after watching the movie The Big Blue, and I have included it in the obit sequence. It's called Deep Sea Callings and is in 4 parts. 1. 2 young scamps. Taunts of coins glinting on the sea bottom, where the cove begins to thirst for depth, but only to eyes brave enough to catch the slanting light through the current. Deeper still, a man in helmet and iron shoes, a father, quarries for shellfish. His airhair snags and his tank fouls on the sabre-edged rocks. The boys freeze into cans as they witness the ebbing of a life. A reunion in Palermo. Pensiones stipple the hillside above the rocks. Some perch like castle keeps. In the courtyards, comforted by bolsters and cushions, the locks fall away to a knowing touch, and the sloped cobble clops to the retreat of shod feet, and a donkey braying its way to market on the piazza that meets the sea. 3. The contest at sea. The reef frets the aquamarine into ancient eyebrows. The dive for truth is powered by double-footed fins and the kick of earth, if that image is not misplaced. Seepage from the life above is pinched shut by nose clips, though the ocean weighs like all the sins of history. Medieval swordfish, two young men, joust for an accolade that will drain a future from them, one to ashes, the other to a moment's fate. 4. Aftermath. As the credits fade, the plot and characters drowse into hibernation in the dust that settles on my living room. By some misstep or pirouette, I find myself thinking of how my beautiful daughter coaxes meaning and mercy from the confusion of others. My eldest son, in a just distant city, an unwritten script before him, lives a life decidedly his own. My younger son, music braiding his hair into a lyre, is steadfast as the dawn. And how the glacier pulses with love as the farther shore inches closer. My last poem is a story poem written in quatrains and rhyme. There are 2 stories that thread their way through the poem. It carries the unambitious title, World Peace. A rusted-on diplomat, in his lapel a cluster of olive wreaths orbing a sun, its lustre tarnished by so much unrequited conflict, despite the seating hours wasted in the strict decorum of conference debate, recalled a childhood farm, a strutting rooster whose coxcomb stood haughtily in the halo of dawn, while the hens and chicks sifted and foraged in an almost suspense state, so lost was their gaze. Chastened, he returned his attention to Russia at the podium, and the spurned overture he always made for a ceasefire, his guile so rehearsed no script need be written. A pained smile, the belated response. His allotted task was eggs, clear or speckled, beaten with milk and the dregs of last night's dinner. Silence and chatter chased each other around the table as they laced together recounted dreams, passed the salt, and the trip his father was planning to the book he might slip into the bookshop. At the lectern, Germany, now France, verbal box step, heel turn, and do-sa-do, the dance continued. He racked his memory for a twist to add, as if the aftermath of novelty might end this mad, bloated ritual. Time was a mouth. Sometimes it swallowed you whole. Sometimes it nipped and snipped and followed round the cup's rim the residue of an unexpected sweetness. He longed for such a moment, yet mourned the fleetness it would inevitably entail. He searched the assembled faces for clues, picking up in their vitreous faces, in the vitreous eyes, only traces of last night's cocktail party, and determined on retreat, as he almost always did when undone by or replete with the corridors of talk and the profession of tact he had prolapsed into, that had made him an artifact to be filed, forgotten, dispensed with. When he left the farm for good, with a degree that led only to a cleft in the road, he had drifted, working in shops and bars, until he chanced upon an ad and sat an aptitude test, with stars and meteors sparking his horizon. So arcane was the wording the lure that engulfed him. It led to an airless office, herding written papers into corrals on too small a desk, gnawing coffee from plastic cups, the tea ladies fired to improve efficiency. From there, he siphoned the air pockets that appeared in the apparatus above. Through such increments, he steered away into this hall of mirrors, where mimicry and mime were language, and the truly original voice rang sublime. He gaped back into the chamber as if an alarm had sounded. Factions had split like a prophet's sea, and silence rebounded off membranes of distrust. Unless the alloy could be recast, the moment to stanch this gouge of hate would have passed. Finland, that redoubt of happiness in the tundra, a hoarfrost now cleating her face, climbed the rostrum. She, more than most, knew the acts of perseverance. Tsars, commissars over decades have tried to draw her into fealty. Jibes are not the brocades that should bloom in this shuttle of speakers to the dais, she said. Recall the promise of our charter. How tenuous our reality should we quail at this impasse. Excess, lying, telescope hearts. Let these be our sins. not the want of trying. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Paul, and also James, and here are their books again. And I commend both of them to you.